to say no to drugs. You know, that's everybody has buttons and stickers and everything. I think right now people have to see that it is a serious problem. It's not just a T-shirt, you know, because in my neighborhood, I'm seeing the worst crackheads ever with say no to drug T-shirts on and stuff like that. I think people need to see that it is a serious problem, you know, on television shows like this, you know, to get us out and to get Malcolm and other artists out to say it. Right now, we are I won't say idols, but we are the people that the kids look up to.
What about the role of adults, Jeff Towns? Is there a lot of hypocrisy on the part of grown-ups in America, and do they really have an impact on kids, or do kids listen mostly to kids?
Well, I think that adults play a very major part in the role on drugs, and it all starts at the home, because you're teaching at the home, you're going to take everywhere. You're going to take it to school, to work, or wherever. And it starts with your parents. If your parents instill good values in you, then you're going to take them wherever you go.
We'd like you guys to stand by there for a minute, because we want to go now to Chicago, to Homewood Flossmoor High School in a suburb south of Chicago, where they have a very controversial program underway, the possibility of testing the athletes, about 1,000 altogether, and Paul Hogan is standing by. What was the reaction of the students there to the president's speech today, Paul?
Right, there was rapt attention, Tom, rapt attention when this president's speech was going on and afterwards, and also when people like DJ Jazzy Jeff are speaking. You get a personal message from not only the president, but people in the rock music industry, don't you, Liam Garvey?
Yes, I do. I feel that the president, what he was saying was real good, and that you have to rely on yourself and be self-assured to know when the time comes you have to choose not to do drugs or to do drugs, but you also have to be around people that are supportive to yourself. But I think the president,
like a coach or friends,
whoever's good enough to lead you in the right direction. But when it comes down to it, it's your choice. So I think you have to believe in yourself.
All right, the president said, Tony Roberts, who's sitting right next door here, that the day of the drug dealer is over. I saw you shake your head no. Why?
Well, I'm very glad that the president is just now attacking this problem, and the school is just now starting drug testing. But I believe had this testing begun a little earlier, then maybe a lot of people wouldn't have tried drugs, and maybe a lot of people wouldn't be hooked on it right now.
Have attitudes changed, as the president said? Are drugs not a good thing now? They're looked down upon?
No. I believe that drugs are still looked, as being very, very glamorous in some aspects, and it depends on who's looking at it. Now, I believe that drugs should not be looked on as glamorous. I think they should be looked on as very dangerous and very potential.
Well, when you see a group like DJ Jazzy Jeff, or you see Malcolm Jamal Warner talking anti-drugs, saying combat drugs, don't do it, do you get a message, Janice Mayer, that you're not going to do it? Do you believe people like that more than, say, President Bush?
Yeah, I think they are good role models, and they do help. I do believe them better than the president.
Are parents doing enough? Are parents in this community, or are they denying, as some students say?
I think that the parents and the teachers should set an example. Since they want a drug test at this school, I think they should be drug tested also to show an example to the students.
Tom Brokaw?
That's a very provocative idea, Paul, and one that the president didn't raise, of course, the idea of testing parents as well, because a lot of it has to do with the role modeling that goes on in the adult community, the use of alcohol and the use of drugs on a recreational basis by grown-ups. The kids at Spingard High School, I'm told, in Washington, D.C., have a question for Malcolm Jamal Warner, who's still with us. Pat Lawson, you're standing by there. Is that the case?
That's right, Tom. Shadonna Penn has a question for Malcolm Jamal Warner, and in fact, Shadonna, why don't you tell him? Ask it.
The question that I wanted to know is, seeing as Mr. Cosby is like a father figure to the children, to you guys on the show, and to a lot of viewers, does he talk to you when you're not shooting or just taking a break about the effects of drugs and what it has, what it does to you?
Well, I think one thing that people don't understand is that Mr. Cosby has 5 children of his own, and that we all have our own mothers and fathers. So we don't really necessarily talk to him or have him talk to us about the drug situation, because I think we have the respective people in our lives to talk to or to have talk to us. But I want to get back to to the question, I think it was in Chicago, you have a lot of people in the industry who are going to do thousands of public service announcements, just say no to drugs, just say no to drugs, and then 2 weeks later, those very people are busted on some big drug bust. And for parents to always hold people up in the entertainment industry as role models, they say, well, look at this person here, he's so perfect, he's so perfect. Understand that role models are not perfect. Role models are people, and how parents can just let their kids put all their trust into these people they don't really know, I can understand that. And I think that we are doing our children a great disservice by saying, well, look, this person is an actor. So just because this is an actor, he's perfect and doesn't do drugs. I personally speak out against drugs because I feel a personal connection and I feel a personal responsibility, and that's part of my job. However, you've got millions of people out here who are doing drugs, and just like Fresh Prince said, you have big crackheads walking around with T-shirts that say "Just Say No." So I think we need to get our priorities straight and delegate responsibilities to people we know are responsible.
We have a question, in fact, for Jazzy Jeff and the Fresh Prince that comes from the high school in Chicago. Paul Hogan, what's the question?
It's from Jason Burke, who's a junior here for Jazzy Jeff.
Yes, I'd like to know if you think that there should be more positive role models in the entertainment business.
Well, like Malcolm was saying, you know, it's parents build us as artists up to be, you know, look at this person, you know, look what he's doing, you know, he doesn't do drugs, you should stay away from him. You know, we are not idols, you know, we're people just like your people. We made the decision within ourselves and within our families to say no. That's a decision that you have to make within yourself and within your family to say no.
Thanks, guys. We want to go now to Burbank, California, where we have standing by two exceedingly well-known men, of course, and that's John Larroquette and Dave Winfield. Dave Winfield is the Yankee baseball star who has a foundation of his own. John Larroquette, the star on NBC's Night Court, and he's also had a well-publicized bout with alcohol. Dave Winfield, let me ask you a question. The president today stressed self-esteem and alternatives, but it seems to me that for too many young people in this country, especially in the inner city, there are too few role models with which they can really identify. They're either big stars like you or Malcolm Jamal Warner or somebody who seems to be out of reach. How do you find somebody in the middle for them to identify with?
Well, Tom, that's the question. In the inner city, it's a little tougher than it is in some of the suburbs, but there are some basic things inherent that all kids need reinforced so that they do not use drugs. And you're talking about self-esteem, positive alternatives. They have to learn how to make the right choices. You have to have goals and dreams, and you have to have trust in somebody who is a role model, a responsible adult. I was fortunate to find that in my community, and it was probably lower middle class, but I found it in, first of all, with my family. I found it in coaches. I found it in teachers and concerned neighbors. And it can't always be that professional athlete. We didn't have professional athletes, or we weren't in Hollywood. This was in Minnesota. But it was rough, and now it's worse today, so everyone has to make a contribution. And it should start at home, then in the schools, and then worry about the athletes, entertainers, and people like that as the role models.
John Larroquette, the president did not talk about alcohol today, but of course alcohol abuse is a major problem among young people in this country. You are a drug user and an alcoholic. We've often been told that drug abuse sometimes stems from alcoholism first. Is that something that should be addressed in your judgment as well as drugs simultaneously?
Absolutely. You know, when you really think about it, the number of people that each year die from the abuse of alcohol as opposed to other drugs. Now, you know, alcohol is a drug. It is an extremely addictive drug as far as my own personal experience can prove. It's, you know, there's a connection on every street corner in America. You can pull into a gas station and fill up both your tank and yourself. And it's also, as far as being in the home is concerned, I think the hypocrisy of dad pouring scotch and telling his son, don't do those drugs, it's all under the same umbrella. You know, I really do believe that alcohol, because if you dry up the source of other drugs, alcohol is always extremely available, and it is as debilitating and as killing as crack or heroin or any other substance you could use.
All right, the Winfield Foundation, by the way, has a tape that it's been using. It's called Turn It Around, and it's to teach self-esteem. We want to show you a little portion of that videotape now, and then we have a question for Dave Winfield from our Chicago high school. Let's look at the tape first.
Choosing not to use drugs is a whole lot easier when you know where you're going. That's where goals come in.
That's Dave Winfield talking about the chance for youngsters to reach out and to help solve this problem on their own by, as the president put it today, if you don't have a drug problem yourself, look for others that you may be able to help. Dave Winfield is in our Burbank studios now, and of course, standing by in Chicago, Paul Hogan, and I'm told that there's a question from the Chicago School for Dave Winfield. Paul?
Right, from Mark Chambers, Tom, who believes in that positive mental approach Winfield's talking about, but has a question that affects him close to home today.
Yes, I would like to know, how would you feel if you were back in high school and you were involved in sports and you would have to test for drugs?
Which is what they're going to be doing here soon, it appears, Dave.
Well, again, society has changed since I was in school. There were people who used drugs, but the situation, the young people are just going to have to understand, drugs are not going to help you, so you might as well stay away from them. They're not going to help you perform better. They're not going to help you accomplish anything in life. So you should not have to worry about whether you're going to be tested or not, because if you're using drugs, you really shouldn't be involved. But hopefully schools will have a comprehensive program, will educate, it will direct them to places to go. If they have problems, consult with them and give them, well, basically they should just have a comprehensive program for the kids in school. And if that's the first step in your school, then so be it.
Thanks, Dave Winfield. By the way, we have standing by now in Miami a family who has been through all of this. Gerald, Kathleen, and Scott Petro. 17-year-old son Scott had a terrible drug problem. Scott, just give us a brief description of the kinds of drugs that you were doing before you began to get treatment.
Well, I was into alcohol, nicotine, cigarettes. I was into cocaine, crank, LSD, mushrooms, speed, and a lot of other drugs that I could go into, but basically just prescription drugs that, over-the-counter, things like that.
And Gerald and Kathleen, did you know that your son was using when he was in the midst of all of that?
We were terribly ignorant of what was going on. We suspected trouble, but it wasn't until we had a very significant happening that we got him help. And we were just ignorant. We were not educated in the drug usage.
What worked? Scott, what turned you around? Recognition on the part of your parents that you were in trouble?
No, that teachers, parents, it didn't really matter. I didn't want to hear anything from anybody. All I wanted was to go out and do what I wanted to do. And basically what helped me was my parents put me in a turnaround program, which was, an adolescent drug rehabilitation program. And I heard stuff from other people my age, good things, positive peer pressure. They were telling me that I was screwing up, that I was doing bad. They told me what I needed to work on, and it helped me to hear from people my age what I needed to do, where my life was headed, and how I could turn it around.
Malcolm Jamal Warner has a question for you, I think, Scott.
Scott, how old were you when you got involved in drugs? And two, I think kids would be interested in what made you get involved in drugs.
Okay, those are good questions, I guess. I was 13 years old when I got involved in drugs. I got involved in marijuana, and I didn't really move on to the more serious drugs such as cocaine and LSD until I was about 15 or 16. And the other question about why I got into drugs is I would probably say it was peer pressure at first. It was the end thing to do. People were using drugs. I wanted to be accepted in this crowd, or I wanted to be, with this person, and he was using drugs. He was the cool guy. And then basically I started using because it felt good. It was something to get me high. And eventually those good feelings went away, and I had to use just to feel normal. I had to use just to be, I guess, feel decent. And I got lower and lower, and I eventually used just to get by, just to push my feelings down to get away with things.
Scott, we're going to ask you to pause there for just a moment. We'll be back with continuing coverage on More You Know, the need to know more about drug abuse among young people in America right after this.
I was working with an actor. I knew he was high on something. Once he even nodded off during a performance. I never said anything to anyone. A year later, he overdosed. He's gone now, and I miss him. And I keep wondering if I had said something to someone, would he still be alive today? The more you know about addiction, the more you'll know how stupid it is to be silent.
The more you know about education, a Channel 4 News special report on reaction to President Bush's speech.
And we rejoin you now at Roosevelt Junior High in Glendale, California, where we've been watching the speech and watching the reactions to the speech from people all over the country. And now we want to talk a little bit more about the situation here. Jessica DeLima, I know you wanted to ask a question of Jamal Warner. Unfortunately, we ran out of time. But your perceptions about the remarks that people made were interesting. You felt the president and perhaps others were naive about drugs. Do you still feel so?
Well, I believe the president has a positive viewpoint, and he's trying really hard, and he's doing well, but it's worse, and he's got to find another way to get to the kids, to get to the drug dealers, because they're not being stamped out. They're just getting bigger.
But Jamal Warner and Dave Winfield and the others talked about ways to get the kids too and to have positive programs. Are they any good? Are they useful, Nina? What do you say?
Yeah, they're useful, but they don't have as much pressure as we do now.
That's the point, isn't it?
Yeah.
The pressure is right where you are,
yeah, right where
and
we
not
are.
where they are.
Yeah.
So what do people on the streets say when they see one of these public service announcements with a famous person who says, don't do drugs?
They just say, well, they don't really care. They're just doing it for, publicity or something. I think they have a negative viewpoint of the people who say, don't do drugs, don't do drugs.
It's all a big joke in a way.
Yeah, they don't take it seriously enough.
Okay, thank you very much, all of you, and it's been an interesting morning with you. We want to go to Phil Schumann now to continue our program. Phil?
Keith, we're live in Bill Crossgrove's 12th grade advanced placement government class at Southgate High School, where it's safe to say that the reaction to the speech was less than overwhelming. I just want to talk to some of the students and tell me what you thought of it.
Well, like I had told the floor behind me, but we were talking about in the way he was speaking, he could have shown a little more personality, a little more oomph, so that way, we could get a little more into this. But I still agree with some of the views that were thrown in this class that basically we should do it on our own. We should be an example, so that way, if we change one person, then we've accomplished something.
Okay, let me move it down here. Did you feel that the speech was worthwhile? Did you get anything out of it?
Yes, I thought that the public got something out of it, but I thought that he should have placed more emphasis on education earlier on in the years for children, such as elementary school, and not so much high school. High school, we already have our attitudes and everything. But elementary is where we need to stop it. That's where it gets started, and that's where we need to stop the attempt before it gets...
Okay, that's a good point. Moving down the row here, how much of a problem is drugs in high schools?
Well, I think it's real predominant in high school, especially in the LA area where we see drug pushers all over the place. We hear of gang fights. We hear of it being sold, even in elementary, to young students, and I think it's a real problem. But among ourselves in this class, I don't feel it's a problem because we more or less control it and we know it's bad for us. But for the small child who doesn't know the consequences and doesn't know the difference, that's where the real danger and jeopardy is.
Okay, we have time for one more quickly. Do you think people were paying attention to what the president said?
Yeah, they were paying attention, but...
Just an excuse to miss a class.
For me, it is. But I think it'll help the people because just that he had more heartful tone to it. So he didn't so much wanted to stop everyone that was doing it. He just wanted people to be involved in it because he knew that
Okay. That's it live from Southgate High School. I'm Phil Schumann. We'll have a complete report on this president's speech and reaction to it locally later on the Channel 4 News, beginning at 4. Until then, have a good day.
This has been a Channel 4 News special report. We'll have